Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Putri Zhafira Zahra and this is my ID. In this video, I want to complete my midterm project from the Sociolinguistics course. Please pay attention. Code switching and code mixing. Table of contents. So there are two materials we're gonna talking about in this presentation. There are code switching and code mixing. First, code. So we're gonna talk about the definition of code. Before we know what is code mixing and code switching, we must know what is code first. In various circumstances, people typically select the different codes. So they may select for a certain code or type signs. It makes it simpler for them to talk about a certain subject. Wherever they are speaking, people have to select a specific code to communicate their feelings when they want to speak to one another. Speaking or writing in particular language, dialect, accent, register, or style on various occasions or of different purposes of communication is a symbol of nationalism. The term code in sociolinguistics refers to a language or a number of languages. This phrase is primarily employed to avoid having to bind the sociolinguistic to terms like dialect, language, or variety, which have particular status in his theories, and to serve as a neutral label for any system of communication using language. A code, according to Wardock 1998, can be characterized as a system used for communication between two or more parties used on any occasions. We can revert to the method of communication used by two or more persons when speaking to one another as a code. Code, in the words of Crystal 1997, is a set of rules for changing one signal system into another. To put it another way, a code is a set of guidelines that establish use to convey information symbolically. Human language is likewise a code. Was made up of words that stand in for concept, occasion, and thing. It will facilitate communication when used in specific situations. So, first, code switching. The definition of code switching. Cases of code switching are defined by many linguistic experts. It provides the necessary clarity for us to comprehend the idea of meaning code switching. According to Wardock in 1998, code switching is a conventional tactic used to build, evoke, or alter interpersonal ties with their right and obligation as well as to cross or demolish group borders. And the metaphorical code switching takes place whenever the perceptions, the goal, or the subject of the conversation change. So this form of switching in relation to the components affect the ends, act sequences, or key, but not the situation. And they're also, according Himes in 1986, code switching is the practice of switching between two or more language, dialects, or even speech style. So he said that code switching is the practice of communicators using more than one language to carry out a speech act. And the third definition is according Victoria and Rotman in 1983. Code switching is the practice of conversing in more than one language or dialect. Code switching can be separated from other language contact phenomena including pidgin and Creoles, borrowing, transfer or interference, long-lane translation or calculus, and lowing. So, according to the definition given, code switching is more common among bilingual or multilingualism speakers. One dialogue should contain instead of code switching. In other words, there are instances where a speaker will fully after the code being utilized, such as by switching between the. So there are three different sorts of code switching are produced by the grammatical classification. First, text code switching. So, text code switching, or we know as text switching, is the switching of either a text pairs of a word or both from one language to another by way 2000. So, text switching is the phenomenon where a speaker intentionally or unintentionally switch between two languages, often using a word or pairs from the one language in a sentence primarily component of another language. This linguistic behavior can occur in various forms, such as switching a single word, a pairs, or even a sentence from one language to another. For instance, a bilingual speaker might say, I'm not going to the store and then I'll go to la tienda, where la tienda in Spanish pairs used in the otherwise English sentence. This linguistic phenomenon is often observed in multilingual communities where speakers may use elements from different languages to convey meaning or to express cultural identity. And this is the example of text code switching. Bunganya bagus, isn't it? There is a text word in English which is inserted into bahasa sentence. In other words, text switching can be defined as a switching that occurs when some insert short expression or tag in other language than the main language in the utterance. The second from grammatical classification is the transsential code switching. There is four definitions from three experts to definition of intransential code switching. This first one is according way 2000. The switching occurs within a sentence or a clause. So this means that switches between language happen seamless within the structure of a linguistic unit. The second is according Mugiono 2013. It switches at the clause, pairs, or word level if no phonological adaptation occurs. So indicate the switching can happen at the clause, pairs, or word level, particularly if there is no morphological adaptation. This suggests that the extent of switching can vary based on linguistic context and speaker preference. The third, from Sana Poplight 2015. It may consist of a long content word or be a part of a multi-word fragment. Suggests that it may include a single content word or be part of a multi-word fragment, illustrating the flexibility and diversity in how languages are mixed within a sentence. And the last is saying from Sana Poplight, but the year is 1980. Intrasentential switching is the most complex type of code switching in which the speakers are able to control two linguistic systems simultaneously. So, this complexity arises from the speaker's ability to navigate and control two linguistic systems simultaneously within a single utterance. This implies a high level of linguistic proficiency and cognitive control on the part of the speaker. And this is the example of intrasensial code switching. Kamu pasti tahu, I like the pink one. The switching from bahasa to English occurs in this sentence. The third, from grammatical classification, there is intersensial code switching. It's a different. The before is the intrasensial and this is the intersensial. There is three definitions from three experts. First, according Way 2000, the switching occurs outside the sentence or the clause level. So, intersensial code switching is a phenomenon observed in language use, so characterized by the switching between language at the level beyond individual sentence or clause. The second is from Romain 1998. So further elaborates that in the intersensial code, the switching involves a switch at a clause or sentence boundary where its clause or sentences is in different language. So, and the last is, according with Journal 2013, intersensial switching may also occur between speaker turns. So, indicating that it occurs not only at sexual level but also within the context of the conversational exchange. And this is the example from intersensial code switching. Tugasku sudah selesai, I'm going to sleep now. This switching occurs in different sentences. In other words, intersensial switching is when a speaker switches his language from one to another in different sentences or after the turn taking with another speaker. The second is code mixing. We're gonna talk about code mixing. There is 5 definitions from 5 different experts. So first, according Wardau, 1998, code mixing happens when speakers of two languages interact to the point where the switch between them during a single speech. So it indicates that the conversion has only modified a few parts of the statement. Without a shift in subject, code mixing occurs and might involve several linguistic levels, such as morphology and lexical elements. The second is MyScans 2000. According MyScans, the use of lexical and grammatical elements from two different languages in a single sentence is a definition from code mixing. So additional, he described in code the use of fragment of one language while a speaker is actually speaking in another. And the third is, according to 1998, code mixing involves the borrowing of sentence components from one language to another in order for reader to understand what the writer has expressed. The writer used two or more languages to present their idea, listen, message, and experiment. So code mixing is a term used to describe a broad type of linguistic interaction, including instance of code switching and another type of context that places more emphasis of lexical component. And according Greta 2010, Greta claims that the following question point to a theoretical distinction between code mixing and code, with emphasis on the various grammatical components involved as well as the relationship with circumstance and issue identified in the instance. And the last is from Naban. According Naban in 1984, code mixing occurs when individuals combine two or more languages in a speech, act, or discourse without being forced to do so. So according to him, 2006, there are a few elements that contribute to codemixing. Among them are bilingualism, speaking by a speaker, social network, situational word list, and status. Bilingualism is the capacity to speak more than one language is unavoidably and a fundamental component of codemixing. Speaking by a speaker is the act of communicating ideas between the two decision participants is known as communication. Social network is either in the monolingual or bilingualism community. A person resides there or work together. Situational is codemixing typically happen in the casual or relaxed setting. Word list is when there are any suitable word or when a language vocabulary is lacking. And status is people must be able to speak more than one language, notably English, in this age of globalization. Codemixing, according to Siregar in 1996, can be classified as either intrasensorial mixing or an extrasensorial mixing. So first, intrasensorial mixing. The alternation of single word or pairs with clauses within a single sentence or speech is known as intrasensorial mixing. So, example, aku benar-benar busy hari ini. So, busy as a code mixing of word in the sentence. Semalam, maaf aku nggak bisa datang ke pestamu because I have many duties. Because I have many duties is a code mixing of clause. And the last is tinggal follow up di dalam nanti. Follow up as code mixing of pairs in the sentence. So, in this study, sentences code mixing takes the following form. First, declarative. So, declarative is the subject and predicate are arranged normally in declarative sentences. So, when spoken, the sentence finishes with a decrease in pitch and a period in writing. Yeah. For instance, I want to sleep now. Capek gara-gara tadi pagi. That's the example of declarative. And the second is interrogative. Interrogative is like WH, like what, when, why, where, and when question. Subject question and yes or not question are example of interrogative. For example, Yan, baju yang kamu pilih apa? Green or blue? That is interrogative. And the third is imperative. Imperative sentence typically includes the first imperative. So the tone usually determines the exact meaning when the imperative is employed in requests, which can range from stern orders to pleading please, depending on the situation. For instance, hurry up, aku mau pakai motornya. Example of imperative. So, the aforementioned example makes it clear that those are single word, single clause, and single pairs codemixing pairs. Next is extrasensorial. So, extrasensorial mixing typically takes place between sentences. It requires less complicated syntactic interaction between the two languages engaged in codemixing because it happens at sentence boundaries. So there are two types of codemixing. Are inner codemixing, such as inner codemixing, which originates from the native language with all of its variations, and outer codemixing, which originates from a foreign language. So, according to Maskin 2000, codemixing can be further classified into three primary types. First is insertion, or insertion is like word or phrase. Alternation is like clause, and congruent lexicalization is dialect, with intentional codemixing being the most prevalent type in society. So, Maskin contends that the bilingual speech community may exhibit three basic kinds of interessential, like we talked about before, is insertion, alternation, and congruent lexicalization. Next. Okay, we're gonna talk about reason to switch or mix the language. So, there must be reason why he or she which switch from speaking in their original tongue to English. So, reason for bilingualism or multilingualism to switch or mix their language, according to Saffield Trout, 1996. First, why the reason is to soften or straighten requests or commands. Since English is not their mother tongue and does not sound as straightforward as Bahasa Indonesia, mixing and switching Bahasa Indonesia into English might help soften a request from Indonesian. However, codemic switching and codemixing can also make a comment stronger since they give the speaker the impression that they are more powerful than the listener because they are able to speak a language that not everyone can. And the second is because of real lexical needs. The absence of equivalent lexicon between the language is the most frequent cause of bilingual switching or combining their language. As Indonesian English bilingual will find it simple to say word in a bahasa if it is missing from English, and vice versa. He or she will employ the English term when there is no equivalent in Bahasa Indonesia. If it put it Indonesian, the meaning would occasionally not be clear or precise. For instance, technical terms are strongly connected with English in Indonesian, and the topic itself may cause a switch to or a blending with English. The third is to exclude other people when a comment is intended for only a limited audience. But sometimes people only wish to communicate with member or particular group or community. They might try to exclude those people by employing a language that not everyone is familiar with in order to prevent the other community of people from interfering with their communication. Next, so before we talk according from Saffield, and the next is according to Hoffman, 1991. So according to Hoffman, the reason why switch and mix the language. First is talking about a particular topic. Sometimes people would rather speak about a certain subject in one language than another. In language other than their native tongue, a speaker may occasionally feel more at ease and free to express their emotional feelings. The second is quoting somebody else. People occasionally like quoting a well-known statement or saying from a renowned person. These well-known individuals in Indonesia are primarily from a few English-speaking nations. Then, because many Indonesians today are fluent in English, those well-known statements or saying can be quoted verbatim in the language that they were originally intended for. The third is being emphatic about something. People who are speaking in language other than their original tongue frequently move, whether on purpose or accidentally, from their second language to their first language when they suddenly wish to be passionate about something. 4 is interjection, interesting sentence fillers or sentence connector. People who are bilingual or multilingual may occasionally distinguish an interjection or sentence or connector by switching or blending their language. It could occur accidentally or on purpose. There's 5. Repetition used from clarification. When a bilingual person wishes to make their speech more understandable to the audience, he or she may occasionally utilize both of the language they have mastered to say the same pairs. The utterance is repeated. 6 is the intention or clarification the speech content for interlocutor. There will be a lot of code flipping and code mixing when a bilingual person converses with another bilingual person. The last is expressing group identity. The expressing of group identification can also be accomplished by codemic switching and code mixing. The last is difference between code switching and code mixing. So they may be heard speaking other language as well. The so-called linguistic phenomena of code switching, you name it alih kode, and code mixing, you can call it kode campur kode, would necessarily occur when people have to speak different language or follow different speech level. And there's an example in Japanese language like ngoko or kama. For different reasons, you have code switch when you speak with another bilingual individual while switching between two or more languages. So the distinction between code switching and code mixing is now clear. The switch is functional, which means you switch language when you do so on purpose and for a specific reason, such as the presence of the third party who speak a different language or a change in the subject or context. This is a bibliography. Okay, that's all from me. Thank you for your attention. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.